to do with AB and company, but it's time for the lead block.
Lead block.
We start with a player who is retired for the time being. As soon as Rob Gronkowski announced that retirement, the entire football world asked when and if he would be back. Our NFL Network insider, Ian Rappaport, does an awesome podcast. It's called Rap Sheet and Friends. And Gronk addressed what it would take for him to make a potential return to the league.
I've had gut feelings, and then I didn't go with them. I went with a different option, and then it never works out. And I swear it never does. You always want to go with what you're truly feeling, even if it doesn't make sense to someone else. If it makes sense to you, then it makes sense to do that. So, whatever. If I get the gut feeling, that's what I would need. And like my soul would have to be on fire, and I wouldn't just listen to it for one day. It would have to be at like a consistent basis.
We got emotional as he addressed the public in a press conference. We'll get to that sound in a bit. But Schrags, is this not a question of if he comes back, but when? I feel like it is.
I mean, the expectation is that Gronk is going to start the season retired. It starts to linger when October, November rolls around, and especially if the Patriots potentially are having some issues with the passing game, and maybe Jacoby Myers isn't the breakout star we expected, or N'Keal Harry isn't dominating the NFL. I would say this, though. Is it not in Gronk's best interest to leave the door open? If you want to be a relevant spokesperson of companies, if you want to be a relevant Boston personality, is it not in your best interest to at least say, I'm not sure if I'm finding the joy? Like, this could be a temporary stay at the moment, and saying, I need to find myself. I need to find my joy. Guess what? 5 years from now, I'll be 34. Antonio Gates is playing at about 40 at this age. This door is still open, whether Gronk wants to believe it or not. I think that this starts to creep in with every ex-player. But I would probably defer to Nate and say, does that creep in, especially if you're under the age of 30?
Yeah, I feel like Gronk is one of those individuals that after a few weeks, maybe a few months, he's going to start missing the game because he was so passionate. I know we look at Gronk as this big kid, goofball. He's always having fun, but he was always dominant as well. The one thing I do know is if Gronk sits back middle of the season and he gets that itch, the Patriots will allow him to scratch it. But, Shrek, you said something while you were talking, and I couldn't help but think about the opposite. You said, is it in his best interest to keep the door open? And you guys know I'm a proponent of him coming back because I just love that storyline.
Yeah.
But isn't it in his best interest to stay retired? He went out on a walk-off of a Super Bowl.
Out of sight, out of mind, Nate.
No, I get that. Shrakes. Bro, you're talking to a guy that wants Gronk back ASAP. But, man, I also remember Jordan with the Wizards, I also remember some of our older legends that came back and they just weren't the same. And let's not get it twisted. Gronk was banged up over the last couple of seasons. So I don't know. As much as I want him back, I don't know if I want him to tarnish his legacy by being out there limping around.
I hated MJ on the Wizards.
It's terrible. I remember Paul Pierce blocking his jump shot. Noted leaper, Paul Pierce. I actually don't think Gronk is going to come back. I don't know that for sure. Obviously, it's just my gut. And I just want to point out I was the only person at the table who knew he was going to retire last year, and you guys scoffed at that. I just have a gut for it. I'm hearing him say my soul would have to be on fire to come back, and not just for a minute, for a long time. Peter, I think his brand is 100% secure for years and years to come. He is a beloved Boston athlete who has a one-name brand name. I think he's good there. I think he's also very in touch with himself. I think he is not stupid. Guys, we talked after the Super Bowl about how he took a hit in the thigh and says he didn't sleep well for a month. He comes back. He gets the itch. He goes back. First play of the first series, going right on the thigh board, buddy. Welcome back to football. If you hated this, you're not going to love it now. And I also think that sometimes when these guys come back, especially to their old team, I think they talk to the teammates. I think they talk to the coaches. Come on, we could really use you. I don't think that's coming from the Patriots. The Patriots figure this out. I don't think the Patriots are going to miss Gronk. I don't think they'll get the pressure from him. I think he will not come back, and I do not want him to. The Jordan on the Wizards factor.
Let's hear more from Gronk, though, because he spoke about his decision to retire. He was unveiled as the spokesperson for a CBD company just yesterday, and he got pretty emotional. Take a look.
I needed to recover. I was not in a good place. Football was bringing me down. And I didn't like it. And I was losing that joy in life. Like, the joy. I'm sorry right now, but, I really was. And I was fighting through it. And I knew what I signed up for, and I knew what I was fighting through. And I knew I just have to fix myself.
So he got emotional. He's talking about losing joy in the game. At Andrew Luck's press conference, he said this cycle of injuries takes his joy away from the game. Nate, how much does joy factor into an athlete's decision to stay on the field or to walk away?
Let me turn this question a little bit. And I don't want to get too heavy. It's early in the morning. But I'll take you back to one of my many injuries. I leave the field, and immediately I have to go to the hospital because surgery is around the corner. They pull blood, and there's an older lady, like a grandma figure of such, and she doesn't know football. She doesn't know me. Once she comes back with my blood results, she says, "Oh, we have a problem." And I'm thinking, what? What problem? And she looks at me, she says, "I'm concerned for you, son." I'm like, "What do you mean?" She's like, "I've never seen so many toxins in somebody's blood before they go into surgery." And I said, "Oh, I don't think you understand." So I play ball and, anti-inflammatories because of bumps and bruises and pain medicines and also just, pre-game workout stuff. She's like, "No, I don't care what you do for a living. Like, this isn't normal. Nobody should ever have this many toxins in your body." And this is the same time where CBD oil, guys are talking about the benefits of cannabis, and still the NFL and the relationship with the taboo around cannabis, they're pushing it away. So seeing Gronk sit back and say, CBD oil is something that I'm going to look into. Guys that I played with that said, if I could, I would use cannabis or CBD oil as a medication instead of putting pills in my system and tearing up my interior. So I remember that moment. I will remember it for the rest of my life because at that moment, to answer your question in a very long-winded way, I thought to myself, I can't continue to do this because the only way that I can get through practice and get through a game is to shove stuff in my body that is literally killing me from the inside out. So Gronk sitting up there being emotional, I know exactly where he's coming from. Because guys can't, let's call it what it is, guys can't smoke weed to go to sleep or to alleviate the pain or take the bumps and bruises down to nothing. They have to take pills or they deal with the pain. And I think Gronk, for as tough as he was, we all recognize at some point in his career, he was just dealing with the pain. And once you're dealing with the pain, it's not just their body that gives up. Sometimes it's your mind. And that's what we see with Andrew Luck.
Both of them.
Gronk, Calvin Johnson, the list goes on and on and on.
If there's anything that we could take from this, and Nate, that was eloquent and very revealing, I think that there is a disconnect maybe with how we, the media, or the fans at home view the player. We view him as a gladiator, as an entertainer, but there's a person inside there, and this is very 2019 to see the vulnerability of an Andrew Luck to come out and say how he can't even lift his child or whatever it is, and then you've got Rob Gronkowski, who we think of Gronk, tough guy, chug beer, great, take the hit. Crying on stage. I think we've evolved, and these are men. These are fully, evolved human beings, and not just machismo, gladiator, entertainer. The fans have to come to terms with that. There's more to that than just the player.
Good point.
We got football in 8 days, and I find myself kind of defensive of the sport right now. I played Division I college football. I understand the grind that the sport is. I know what it's like to. You walk into the locker room every day, and you're tired, and it stinks, and you got to put on those cleats and those pads, and you're not playing as well as you like, and it is a grind. But scoring a touchdown is the coolest thing in the world. It's better than hitting a three-pointer. A pick six is better than hitting a home run. A strip sack is better than getting into real estate or doing a commercial. The joy of it, the highs of it are still so damn high that that's why you go through it. And we're seeing guys that say, I've had enough highs. But still, these are the exceptions. There's guys who want to play the game as long as possible because they love it.
Yeah.
We got a 42-year-old in this league who's made millions and millions of dollars over and won every Super Bowl in the world. It's like, I can't wait to get out there again. So these guys are interesting. I respect them. But let's not fall into thinking that they're the norm because the game is still incredible.
All right, is it going to be the new normal, though? We were with some Hall of Famers last night.
Yeah.
Kurt Warner, LaDainian Tomlinson. We had Steve Smith, I think a future Hall of Famer. And I was asking them, does anything ever replace the joy and what football does to you on the field? Of course, their answer was no, absolutely not. But then we did get into a conversation about, are we going to see more of this? Am I going to have to get used to seeing players in their prime at the top of their game, 3 Super Bowl rings in, a playoff AFC championship appearance in, walk away? And it seems the sentiment from a lot of different guys seemed to be, well, the pay's different, so it is a little bit easier to walk away because there's the security that Andrew Luck has. How much money do I really need? And then you start weighing that with happiness when that wasn't always the case maybe 10, 20 years ago. Do you think we'll see a little bit more of this going forward?
Potentially. I feel like we had it with Barry Sanders in '98, who you mentioned was there last night, and there's been other guys who do it, but to have these two players who I think Luck was on pace for a Hall of Fame career, probably won't get there now, and then Gronk, who is going to the Hall of Fame, for them to step away on such a spotlight season, the NFL's 100th year, I do think it opens that conversation. I would say the thing that they miss the most, and you guys can all speak to Talking ex-players, and you are one, the camaraderie in the locker room, not the on-field exploits. So I think that's the stuff that's hard to replace. And now with social media, maybe they can still get that feeling of camaraderie in the locker room.